Hey guys, and welcome to the second episode of Blast from the Past. Steve here for Who Took My Dice Miniature Wargaming. So if you missed the first episode, I did sort of a chronological, just short point thing on how wargaming's evolved from the Prussians and their Kriegspiel up to now. And just went over some really important points, stuff that happened in Germany, the UK, the US. This one's going to be about H.G.Wells' Little Wars, which is really, I think, considered by a lot of people the very first step into civilian, say it that way, miniature wargaming. So I've actually downloaded it here from the Gutenberg project, and there's a link down below to that, so you can look at it yourself. There's also going to be a link to the British Pathé page, or channel, I should say, the video featuring Peter Cushing from the 1960s. I put it in the first video as well. And it's just a little video of him painting up some miniatures, and actually it features Little Wars. So we're going to get right into it. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go bit by bit through this book, kind of explain how they developed stuff using H.G. Wells' own words there. And we're going to get into just how cool of a game this was. It had a lot of stuff that we still do today, with some other unique things put into it, as they found it worked for them way back when. So the whole title, and it's a long one, is Little Wars: A Game for Boys from 12 years of age to 150, and for that more intelligent sort of girl who likes boys' games and books. So if anybody is sensitive to sort of a chauvinistic maybe view, this book's got lots of it. He mentions women being sort of distractions and just not having the intelligence for some of this stuff. The book is written when it was written, so if anybody doesn't like that, I'm sorry. We'll move on. Okay, so the first thing he talks about is the first part is of the legendary past, where he talks about how other people throughout years, long before his time, were playing miniature war games, which we've kind of seen to be true. And then the second part is the beginnings of modern little warfare. This is basically the introduction, right? So it says it first started where they were actually using a spring breech loaders, which were these little wooden and metal guns that you could actually put a little wooden dowel in, and it had a spring, and it would launch the dowel. So he and a friend of his were, let's see here. Yeah, he and a friend. Let's see here. I may have skipped stuff. I'm just trying to go through this again. So it was one of these guns that he and a friend of his were playing around with in his friend's study. They were shooting at these 2.5-inch tall tin soldiers, and they made a competition of it, right? Like boys playing with their gun, right? The friend's name is JKJ, so he actually tried to veil the name. It said, on a table near our own stood 4 or 5 soldiers, and one of these guns. I drew a chair at a little table, sat down, examined the gun discreetly, loaded it warily, aimed, and hit his man. Thereupon he boasted the deed and issued challenges that were accepted with avidity. And so basically, it just became a game. And then they finally decided that they should actually make a war game based on this, right? And they wanted to do something they could do. They had a friend who was sick at this point, and they wanted to have something that everybody could do. So they started building it. Just looking for here. To him, the idea was broached with futility. We had 2 forces of toy soldiers sat out in lumpish encyclopedic land upon the carpet and began to play. Who hasn't played Floorhammer at least once? I know I have, especially with Apocalypse. So in the original Apocalypse book, they show you how to set it up on the floor, so you have a nice big area, right? We arranged to move in alternate moves. First, one moved all his force, then the other. An infantryman could move on one could move 1 foot to each move, a cavalryman 2, a gun 2, and it might fire 6 shots. If that man was moved up to touch another man, then we tossed up and decided which man was dead. So we made a game, which was not a good game, but was very amusing once or twice. So right there, they just took a few minutes, created a basic game, right? Really, it hasn't changed that much, has it? You look at what we do now: move, shoot, attack. And they did it alternately, but it really hasn't changed. So they started improving it. They wanted it to be more fun. So he says right here, it was an easy task for the head of the household to evict his offspring, annex the advantages, and set about planning more realistic country. They call it, in the book, he calls country, basically that's the terrain, the board, right? They would actually take pieces of wood, drill holes in, and put branches in. That's your hill and your trees and forests, what have you. They would take bricks and cover them in paper and draw on them to show houses and buildings, right? And there's actually pictures and illustrations. There's one of I'm looking at right now, and they're actually playing outside in the grass. They've got buildings, they've got a castle, they have rocks, basically anything and anything they can use, everything and anything they can use to set up this country. And it looks absolutely fantastic. They've got a whole little city, guys. While you know what, honestly, while you're listening to this, go to it, check it out, and follow along, right? So yeah, so they said, we found necessary to make certain changes. Houses and sheds must be made of solid lumps of bricks and not hollow set soldiers can be put aside them, because otherwise muddled situations arise. I mean, right now, I think most games take into account moving into buildings. And it was clearly necessary to provide for replacement of disturbed objects by chalking out the outlines of boards and houses on the floor, or boards upon which they stood, which is actually not a bad thing. I mean, there's been a number of times where I've been playing Warhammer 40,000 and someone hits a building, nudges a building, all of a sudden it's maybe an inch or half an inch off, things get closer, it messes with things, right? And thus was perfected. And while we thus perfected the country, we were also limiting all sorts of tedium, disputable possibilities, and deadlocks from the game. We decided that every man should be as brave and skillful as every other man, and that when 2 men of opposite sides get talked up, they would inevitably kill each other. This restored strategy to its prominence over chance. So unlike now where, for instance, you have a Space Marine and a Guardsman, an Orc, a Dark Eldar, a Chaos Marine, they've all got their own stats and points values. This was, when combat happened, a soldier would kill soldier. And thus, new numbers became very important. If you have more guys in your squad than someone else, you could actually have the chance of winning. So, that's sort of one of the cool things I liked about it most. When we get to finally get to rules, so I'm trying to get to now. It goes through difficulties in movement, capturing guns. They changed up things, how far someone can move, the number of men per each big gun, right? So the other thing is that all sorts of little difficulties are too. Connect with the use of guns as a shelter from fire. Very exact rules had to be made to avoid tilting the nose and raising the breech of a gun in order to use it as cover. We still found it difficult to introduce any imitation to our game of either retreat or surrender of men not actually taken prisoner in melee. Both things were possibly by the rules, but no one did them because there was no inducement to. So basically, there was no real reason to fall back or run away. You just kind of kept your guys going, which is kind of, morale is a pretty important thing to have in the game. If you break a unit, you want to know that they're actually going to flee off the table. I mean, how many special rules are there in Warhammer 40,000 specifically that allow you to regroup or ignore morale or what have you? I mean, and they shall know no fear, stubborn. There's the Guard have a bunch of orders. In the Horus Heresy, the Space Marines, the Ultramarines, I should say, have a special rule that allows them to take all their leadership tests at leadership 10. So there's all stuff around it. So And then they said, so is it? This we can try by playing not for the game, but for points, scoring the result of each game and counting the points towards the decision of a campaign. Our campaign was to our single game what a rubber is to some is a game of whist. I have no idea what a whist and rubber is. Some game. We made the end of the war 200, 300, 400 or more points up according to the number of games you want to play, and we scored 100 for each battle won, an addition of 1 for each infantryman, 1 to 1.5 for each cavalryman, 10 for each gun, 1/2 for each man held prisoner by the enemy, and 1/2 for each prisoner held at the end of the game, subtracting what the antagonist scored by the same scale. Thus, we felt the battle was hopelessly lost. We had the direct inducement to retreat any guns he could still save and surrender any men who were under fire of the victor's guns and like to be slaughtered in order to minimize the score against him. It's long. It's fun, but long. So basically, you got points values, just like we do now. We score victory points now. Obviously, it wasn't 200, 300, or 400. It used to be where you could have these big games. Back in the days of fantasy, where you could have pretty big points depending on what you destroyed. Now the victory points have changed. Obviously, you get them for capturing objectives, for killing a warlord, what have you. So basically, what they did is a lot of figuring out how to make these rules work, how to make it so that people actually would retreat like you would in a battle. You don't want your guys slaughtered unless you're one of those guys who doesn't care how many men of your men or creatures or monsters are completely destroyed. But yeah, that's awesome. And you're actually retreating to avoid losing more. It makes sense, right? And then he goes on to talk about them actually playing the rules. So now we get to the rules, okay? So the country, so that's a terrain. The country must be arranged by one player who, failing any other arrangement, shall be selected by a toss of a coin. The other player shall choose which side of the field he will fight from. The country must be distributed as little as possible in each move. Must be disturbed as little as possible in each move. Nothing in country shall be moved or set aside deliberately to facilitate the firing of a gun. A player must not lie across the country so as to crush or disturb the country if his opponent objects. Whatever is moved by accident shall be placed after the end of the move. So it's pretty simple. You put the terrain down, you don't touch it, right? And there's even right now, just like we have now. So things haven't really changed that much, as you can see. Right now, we still kind of have to set up the terrain in an agreeable manner, and they did it by a flip of coin. Right? So the move, after the country's made and the side's chosen, then, and not until then, the player shall toss for the first move. We dice off now. They did tosses. Now, one of the important things is they did not like dice in this game. They tried it. Didn't like it. They said it put chance over strategy. I actually love dice in it, not just because I've been playing with dice forever, but because it does offer that chance. There's that old saying, the best laid plans only last until the first engagement with the enemy, right? The reason they didn't like it, is because they thought it put too much pressure, too much power for chance and not enough for actual strategy, generalmanship. They did talk about one of their soldiers in one game taking out 9 of the enemy's soldiers. I mean, right now, you play in any game, Warhammer 40,000, War Machine, it doesn't matter. One of your guys takes out 9 of the enemy, you're hooting and hollering. That's the best feeling ever. Like, wow, oh, that's crazy. They didn't want that, all right? So it says, if there is no curtain, the player winning a toss, hereafter called the first player, shall next arrange his men along his back line as he chooses. So again, you start at the edge of the board. Now it says curtain. I waited to say this till now. One of the things they did is instead of, now we set up our models, your opponent sets up his, any infiltrators, anything left in reserve, you don't put out, or you put in later if they're outflanking. This, you actually set up a curtain. You could not see your opponent setting up his models. Couldn't see it at all, which is cool. Any man he may place behind or in front of his back line shall count in the subsequent move as if they touched the back line at its nearest point. So if you had anybody behind the end, they came in on your next turn right out of that line. The second player shall do the same, but if a curtain is available, both first and second player may put down their men at the same time. Both players take unlimited time for the putting down of their men. If there is a curtain, it is drawn back when they're ready, and the game then begins. Pretty simple, right? I like the whole unlimited time thing. And then there's some more pictures of them actually having a line drawn out, pieces of wood with branches stuck in it, and he has his men on this line, his cavalry, his guns. So then we continue. The subsequent moves after the putting down are timed. The length of time given for each move is determined by the size of force engaged, which is really cool. Having a time thing. We did that when we would do apocalypse games. You had half an hour to do your whole turn. It kind of kept things going, which is what they wanted. They didn't want to drag out and drag on, someone taking too long. About a minute should be allowed for moving 30 men and a minute for each gun. Thus, a force of 110 men and 3 guns moved by 1 player. 7 minutes is ample allowance. As the battle progresses and the men are killed off, the allowance is reduced as the players may agree. The player about to move stands at attention a yard behind his back line until the timekeeper says go. He then proceeds to make his move until time is up. He must instantly stop the cry of time. Warning should be given by the timekeeper 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds before time is up. There will be an interview before his next move, during which any disturbances in the country can be rearranged and men accidentally overturned, placed in a proper attitude. This interval must not exceed 4 or 5 minutes and may be agreed upon. So you actually, I love this, you actually have to stand at attention, couldn't do anything until the timekeeper said go, and then you had this predetermined amount of time, which is kind of cool. I have been in a few games where someone just took their sweet time moving every little model, and I can tell you, it's maddening. You're sitting there going, I just want my turn. I just want my turn. Obviously, you want them to have fun. You want them to have their turn too. But when it's been 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minutes, and they're still moving their guys because they can't make up their mind or what have you, that's just crazy maddening. And sometimes, shamefully enough, some people use this as a tactic. They want to get you off your game. It's really not cool. We'll talk more about that later, though. So, guns must not be fired before the second move of the first player, not counting the putting down as a move. Thus, the first player puts down the second player, then the first player moves, and the second player, and the 2 forces are then supposed to come into effective range of each other, and the first player may open fire if he wishes to do so. Yeah, it's a complicated way of saying you can't shoot the first turn. In making his move, a player must move or fire his gun if he wants to do so before moving his men. To this rule of guns first, there is no exception. So, as I said, you have to fire your guns. You can move or fire guns if he wants to. Before moving your men. So your guns are first, always. Every soldier may be moved, every gun moved or fired each move, subject to the following rules. All right. So it says mobility and of the various arms, right? So this is where we get into measurements, right? Each player must be provided with 2 pieces of string, one 2 feet in length and the other 6 inches. All right. Any infantryman may be moved a foot or any less distance at each move. A cavalryman may move 2 feet or any less distance at each move. That seems like a lot. Like if you had a Space Marine squad that got to move a whole foot, wow, would games be over quick? Things just boom. You have to take into consideration at this point the model size. They actually talk about later, we'll get to it, but they're using 2 to 2.5 inch tall tin soldiers for the most part. So they're about that tall, right? I know you can't see that, but it's a good, inch and a half taller than most Space Marines, most models, even Terminators. So the scale is different. The foot or 2 feet is a little bit different, right? A gun is in action if there are at least 4 men on its own side within 6 inches of it. If there are not at least 4 men with a distance, it can neither be moved nor fired. So they've actually given you a crew for each gun. So you have to have at least 4 guys in 6 inches. The gun can move and can fire. It's like now, if an artillery piece is all the crew's dead now, it's gone. You take it off the board. So okay, here's where it gets a little bit complicated because actually getting to firing the guns, right? If a gun is in action, it can be either moved or fired at each move, but not both. Same rules apply now. I'm going to use 40K as an example. Hope you don't mind. It's, again, go with what you know. If it is fired, it may fire as many as 4 shots in each move. It may be swung around its axis, the middle point of its wheel axle, to take aim, provided the country about it permits. It may be elevated or depressed, and the soldiers about it may, at discretion of fire, be made to lie down their place to facilitate its handling. So these things are actually pretty big, right? And you could move them. You could actually move them up and down and fire them. Moreover, soldiers who have got in front of the fire of their own guns may lie down when the gun fires over them, right? It's the sort of same thing now. I guess they were trying to make it seem a little more realistic by, if you swivel the gun and your guy is in the way, you're going to blow your own guy's head off, so you can lie down and, right? At the end of the move, the gun must be left without altering its elevation, pointing in the direction of the last shot. And after firing, 2 men must be placed exactly at the end of the trail of the gun, one on your side, line directly behind the wheels. So much for firing. If the gun is moved and not fired, at least 4 men who are within the gun must move up with it to its new position and be placed within 6 inches of it in its new position. The gun itself must be placed trail forward and the muzzle pointing back in the direction which it came. So they actually literally wanted you to have your men look like they were pulling it. So you had to swivel it around. So the tail end is now facing the direction you want to move it, and the 4 guys in 6 inches near that tail. Obviously, the distance in which a gun can move will be determined by the man is with. If there are at least 4 men with it, they can take the gun 2 feet. But if there are fewer cavalrymen than 4, and the rest of infantry, no cavalry and all infantry, the gun won't be only made 1 foot. So if you have cavalry, you can move the full 2 inches. So you've hooked up the horses, off it goes. If you have less than 4 or it's all infantry, it's only a foot, right? Makes sense. Men can only carry so much, horses can move more. Every man must be placed fairly clear of hills, buildings, trees, guns, etc. He must not be jammed into interstices, and either player may insist upon a clear distance between any man, any gun, or any other object of at least 1/16 of an inch. Nor must men be packed in contact with men. A space of 1/16 inch should be kept between them. So it's kind of like now when you charge in close combat. If you're not going to charge in, you can't go within that inch, right? So they want to have everybody clearly away. That way you couldn't bulk your men together. You couldn't hide them. They had to be out in the open actually doing something. When men are knocked over by a shot, they are dead. As many men are dead as a shot knocks over or causes to fall or lean, so they would fall if unsupported. So this is actually when the dowel is shot out of your gun and it hits the opposing army, right? Let's see. If a shot strikes a man but does not knock him over, he is dead, provided the shot has not already killed a man. But a shot cannot kill more than 1 man without knocking him over, and if it touches several without oversetting, only the first touch is dead, and the others are not incapacitated. A shot that rebounds from or glance of any object touches a man, kills him even if it simply rolls to his feet. Subject to what has been said in the previous sentence. So that's a little bit confusing, but we'll work it out. So basically, if you fired at an enemy unit and you hit a guy and he didn't fall over and it just dropped, he's dead. If it bounced off of him and knocked him over and hit 2 more guys and knocked him over, all 3 of them are dead. If it hit a guy, knocked him over, and hit someone else, he didn't fall over, both those guys are dead. If you fired it, it hit off a piece of wood and hit a guy, he's dead. All right. Basically, if you get touched, you're dead. Only the first guy, though. So if it hits the first guy and hits the second guy and it doesn't knock him over, he's fine. First guy's dead, right? All right. And so then we move on to hand-to-hand fighting and capturing. All right. So a man or a body of men which has less than half of its number of men on its own side within a move of it is said to be isolated. But if there's at least half of its number of men on its own side within a move of it is not isolated, is supported. So if you have a squad of 10 men and you have, say, 5 guys over here to the side and they're outside of that foot, that squad is isolated. If you have another squad over here, which is actually within that foot, that move, they're supported, right? Because those other guys can get in right away. Men may be moved up into virtual contact, 1 inch or closer, with men on the opposite side. They must be left until the end of the move. Let's see here. At the end of the move, if there are men on the side just moved in contact with men from the other side, they constitute a melee. All men in contact and men within 6 inches of the men in contact, measuring from any point of their positions, weapons, or horses, are supposed to take part in the melee. At the end of the move, the 2 players examine the melee and dispose of men concerned according to following rules. So this is where this is probably the most complicated part. The other ones seem complicated. Simple movement, shooting. They just went through a lot of detail to make sure it was clear. This is where it gets confusing because now you have guys up close. Okay. Either the numbers taking part in the melee either the numbers taking part in the melee on each side are equal or unequal. If they are equal, all men on both sides are killed. So if you have a 10-man squad attacking 10-man squad, they're all gone. They've managed to charge in. Maybe they stab each other with their bayonets. They're all gone. If they are unequal, then the inferior force is either isolated or, measuring from the point of contact, not isolated. That's where that first part came in. So if I had a 6-man squad of guys and he attacked with a group of infantry and he had 10, but I have another, say, 5, and I'm not isolated, that helps. If it is isolated, then as many men become prisoners as the inferior force is less in numbers than the superior force, and the rest kill each other, each a man, and are killed. Thus, 9 against 11 would have taken 2 prisoners, and each side 7 men dead. So, yeah, 4 of the 11 remain with 2 prisoners. One may put this another way by saying that 2 forces kill each other off man for man till one force is double the other, which is then taken prisoner. 7 men kill 7 men, then 4 are left with 2. So, exactly. So if 11 men came up and you had 9, right, the first 7 men are going to kill each other off. After that point, the other 4 men left over clearly outnumber the other 2. They take him prisoner, right? But if the inferior force is not isolated, then each man in the inferior force kills a man in superior force and is himself killed. So say that 9-man squad got hit by the 11-man squad, but they had another squad within that move distance at foot. They would just kill each other off, so there'd be 2 left. That would be it. There'd be 2 left from the superior force, and that's it. No one gets taken prisoner. And the player who has just completed the move, the one who is charged, decides when there is any choice which man is in the melee. Both of his own and his antagonist shall die, and which shall be prisoners or captors. So you basically got to decide, unlike now where you kind of have to move it around, every guy gets 1 wound, you got to choose. So, I want these guys because everybody's equal. It didn't matter if you paint up a guy who was your absolute total general. He's got the same skill as some little trooper with a rifle and a bayonet. Everybody's the same. All these arrangements are made after the move is over. Any interval between the moves and the time taken for the adjustment does not count as part of the usual interval for consideration. It is extra time. The player next moving may, if he is taking prisoners, move these prisoners. Prisoners may be sent under escort to the rear or wherever the captor directs, with 1 man within 6 inches for any number of prisoners. Up to 7 can escort these prisoners and go with them. Prisoners are liberated by the death of any escort that may be within 6 inches of them, but they may not be moved by the player of their own side until the move following that in which the escort is killed. So you have this escort, so 1 guy for each 7 guys, so he has to be within 6 inches, so he's moving them, and he gets taken out. Boom. These guys, on your next turn, get to move back. Prisoners once made cannot fight until they return back to their back line. It follows therefore that if after the education of a melee, a player moves up more men in touch with survivors of his first line, and so constitutes a second melee, any prisoners made in the first melee will not count as combatants in the second melee. So basically, if I bring my guys up and I attack this guy, and my guys are and my prisoners are there, his prisoners are there, they don't count. They're still prisoners. They're unarmed. You don't want to be going to attack, right? And then he goes into examples of that. So that's basically a big example of how the prisoners, right? Let's see here. Did I miss one? No. Any isolated body may hoist the white flag and surrender at any time. So you can, if you have these guys go, we surrender, they're prisoners. A gun is captured when there's no man whatever of its original size within 6 inches of it, and at least 4 men of the antagonist side have moved up to it and have passed its wheel axis, gone in the direction of their attack. So let's say, for instance, your opponent fires his gun off and he takes out a bunch of your guys. An attack came in and the last guy obviously gets killed, what have you. These guys actually have to move beyond its wheel axis going towards its wheel axle going towards your line. Once they do that, they've captured your gun. The latter point is important. An antagonist gun may be out of action, and you may have a score of men coming to take it within 6 inches of it, but is not yet captured. And you may have brought up a dozen men all around the hostile gun, but if there's still 1 enemy just out of the reach and within 6 inches at the end of the trail of the gun, that gun is not captured. It is still in dispute and out of action. You may not fire it or move it to the next move, but once the gun is fully captured, it follows all the rules of your own gun. So you can actually capture your opponent's guns. And then the next part is varieties of the battle game, right? So these are actually kind of like missions. So yes, they actually have missions in here. So we've gone through the basic rules. Now we're on to the missions. So one is a fight to the finish, right? And they kind of go through. There's a lot here, and I don't want to take up forever. I'm already at 30 minutes. So one is a fight to the finish. You move in from any points you like on the back line, try and kill, capture, drive over his back line the whole enemy's forces. So you get points. You score 100 for the victory and 10 for every gun, and so on. The blow at the rear game is decided when the 3 men of each force, one force, reach any point in the back line of their antagonist. So basically, you make it into your enemy's deployment zone and make it to the back line. The back line is literally your deployment zone. In the defensive game, a force defenders 2/3 as strong as the antagonists try to prevent the latter from arriving, while still a quarter of its original strength upon the defender's back line. So basically, you want to make sure that you're about 2/3 as strong as your antagonist, and while you still have a quarter of your forces left, you want to make sure they don't make it to your back line. And then you have composition of forces. So you actually have a force organization chart here. It says, except in above cases or when otherwise agreed upon, the forces engaged shall be equal in number and similar composition. Obviously, in the defensive game, it's not that way. The methods of handicapping are obvious. A slight inequality, chances of war, may be ranged between equal players by leaving out 12 men on each side and tossing a pair of dice to see how many of each player shall take of these. So they actually brought dice in again, but just for this one thing. The best arrangement and proportion of forces in a small body is about 20-25 infantrymen and 12 to 15 cavalry to a gun. So basically what they found earlier is that too many guns, it just becomes a game of guns. Doesn't matter infantry, you'll be blowing them away left, right, and center. Such a force can maneuver comfortably on a front about 4 or 5 feet. Most of our games have been played with about 80 infantry, 50 cavalry, 3 or 4 naval guns, and a field gun on either side, or with smaller proportion forces. This is where they actually give you some dimensions, right? We played excellent games on an 18-foot battlefield with over 200 men and 6 guns a side. A player may, of course, rearrange his force to suit his own convenience, brigade all or most of his cavalry into a powerful strike force, or whatnot. But more guns proportion leads to their being put out of action too early for want of men. A large proportion of infantry makes the game sluggish, and more cavalry, because of difficulty keeping large bodies of this force under cover, leads simply to early heavy losses by gunfire and violent, disastrous charging. So they actually say, give you too much infantry slows it down. Too much cavalry, they end up getting slaughtered. Too many guns. Let's see. They're out too early because you have so many men around each gun. They start getting taken out. The guns stop becoming useful, right? And actually, they do throw in. He does throw in some examples. One good fight to a finish game we tried as follows. We made the country toss for choice and drew curtains across the middle of the field. Each player then select his force for the available soldiers. Excuse me. In this way, he counted infantry as 1 each, cavalry is 1.5, and a gun is 10. And taking whatever he liked, whatever position he liked, he ended up a total of 150. He could, for instance, choose 100 infantry and 5 guns, or 100 cavalry and no guns, or 60 infantry, 40 cavalry, 3 guns. In the result, a boar-like cavalry force of 80 with 3 guns suffered defeat at the hands of 110 infantry with 4. So they kind of measured it out. So each guy was 1, each infantry was 1. Each cavalry is 1.5, and a gun was 10. So you take 10 guns, depending on your points. Size of soldiers. This is what's important. The soldiers should be all of one size, right? Because there was no. Now we have 28 millimeter heroic size, so on and so forth, smaller, larger. There wasn't a definite size at this point. People were making toy soldiers of all sizes. It says here, the best British makers have standardized size and sell infantry and cavalry in exactly proportioned dimensions. The infantry being nearly 2 inches tall. So, sorry, it's 2 inches, not 2.5. They're lighter, cheaper made, or perhaps 1.5 inches high. So as also well, foreign-made soldiers are variable sizes. So they're obviously going with the British soldiers, 2 inches tall, almost 2 inches tall. And so they're saying if you're going to bring in foreign made soldiers, everybody should use the same thing, right? It would be like saying, bases matter, right? Before in fantasy, everybody was on a square base. 40K, everybody was on a round base. You couldn't really mix the two. If you tried to put a 40K model on a square base, people would look at you like, what are you doing, right? So they want to keep things. And then they actually give you what's called the Battle of Hook's Farm. They go through one of these battles. Excuse me. And there's lots of pictures. I really recommend you guys take a look at this. This is so fascinating, so much fun. And they just go. It gets really long here. It basically goes the red versus blue army, and yeah, and it goes through that. Lots of figures of what happened, the moves. It's actually like probably one of the very, very first battle reports. I'm going to say that. I'm going to put it down right now and say this is one of the very first battle reports. Because that's literally what it does. It gives you figure B, figure 9, figure 8, whatever. And it goes through. I didn't even think of it until right now. This is probably one of the very first battle reports. It's so exciting. I love this stuff. And as you go on, you get to extensions and amplifications of Little Wars. This is actually like the old style Dark Millennium stuff, where you have the rules. Now here's the advanced stuff, right? Things like ending with a sort of challenge, and then there's an appendix called Little Wars and Spiel, where they go through all the stuff, and then it actually goes through things like just different suggestions, like infantry shall move 1 foot, cavalry shall move 3. Then there's things like moving through terrain. So, excuse me, infantry to pass a fordable river is 1 move. To change from 4s to 2 ranks, half a move. To change from 2 ranks to extension, half a move. To embark into boats, 2 moves for every 20 men. Embark at the same point. To disembark, 1 move for every 20 men. So you could actually have, whatever. Oh, there's a movement for cavalry, artillery. Like to unlimber your guns, half a move. To limber up guns, half a move. Rivers aren't passed for guns. So you're actually getting what happens. You can put rivers, bridges, boats. It actually had rules for all this stuff that we still sometimes have difficulty with in rules, going over difficult terrain on. And there's stuff for supplies in the field, construction, building stuff, destroying stuff. It's crazy. I'm at the end now, so it's 42 pages long. I just clicked through all of it. So it says, we believe that the nearer the Kriegspiel can approach an actual small model war, not only in its appearance, but its emotional and intellectual tests, the better will serve the purpose of trial and education. That's the last word on it. So basically, they gave you all the rules, and then gave you all these extra rules. There's several pages of it. Crazy stuff for building things, destroying bridges, rebuilding bridges, moving over, rivers, terrain, whatever. It's all there. And this is back in the late 1800s, right? So and this is stuff that we still, if you look at Warhammer, you look at anything, the Privateer Press stuff, War Machine, you look at Black Powder, Bolt Action, all this stuff is still there. So this really was, I'm going to say not the granny, but the daddy, the father of modern miniature wargaming was H.G.Wells, because this book has everything. Everything that we still do now literally came from this, which is crazy cool. I love it. I'm going to end it there. I'm almost at 40 minutes. Enjoy the video, guys. I'm sorry this is a longer one, but I want to share this. This is just a crazy book. When I discovered it several years ago, I fell in love with it right away. I said, wow, it's amazing that this could be, it hasn't changed that much. Clearly, the rules have gotten better. It's gotten, the books, but this is exactly like a rule book. Literally, I mean, it is, but it's exactly like the rule books we have now today, I should say, where you've got the rules laid out. There are pictures describing it. You've got an introduction of how everything started, and you actually have an appendix at the end, which furthers those rules. It's fantastic stuff. So guys, enjoy this. As always, like, share, subscribe. Any comments, questions, if you want anything, want me to go over anything else in this, please send me an email, whotookmydice1@gmail.com. Again, it's actually the Project Gutenberg website's down there. The British Pathet thing is down there. Enjoy, guys. Keep rolling dice next time. See you later.